Ecocide means unlawful or wanton acts committed with knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood of severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment being caused by these acts.
The word ecocide literally means killing one's home. And in more technical terms, it refers to severe and either widespread or long-term damage to ecosystems.
Ecocide means mass damage and destruction of nature, and that's what we are collectively doing now on a global scale, and it's becoming very, very dangerous. And actually, nobody wants that.
Ecocide, a word meaning to kill the environment. But the environment is the place where we live. A simple idea to grasp, surely, also a very bad idea.
It's like a lot of anxiety, to be perfectly honest. You need to go directly to the people who have the power to try and change, hold those people to account for what they do.
We talk about crimes against humanity, but we also need to talk about crimes against the earth. And to do that, you need to make crimes against the earth unprofitable and criminal.
But if you have the money and the opportunity, you're allowed to do it. There's no law against it.
Last year, I led a group of Quakers and others to the HQ of Vanguard. It's in the City of London. They're one of the biggest funders of ecocide in the world.
It's being carried out all over the world every day. And the ridiculous thing is it's not illegal.
Huge oil and gas companies are now developing lots of carbon bombs. That's the industry term for gigantic projects which will each produce at least 1 billion tons of CO2. They know that this will make vast areas of our planet uninhabitable, but they're going ahead.
So we have to create new rules that we can collectively change our ways to become more dignified as human beings, I think.
Who was Polly Higgins? She was a Scotswoman having a passionate love for nature and one who has refined the very definition of the word ecocide. A brilliant spirit who became a London lawyer. At the end of a case representing someone who had been injured at work, she gazed on the many injuries of the earth and knew that Earth needed a good lawyer. She then gave up the legal practice and devoted herself to advocating for the earth. She worked on the case until she was ready to show to the UN that ecocide was a crime and needed to be included in the Rome Statute, which is the law that underpins international crimes, crimes that go before the International Criminal Court, ICC, at The Hague. We owe it to her to keep going until Earth and her creatures are protected from ecocide.
Creating a new international crime of ecocide would change this completely by creating personal criminal liability for those taking the decisions behind the ecocidal acts. That would be the directors of the corporations or possibly the ministers issuing the licenses.
If damage to the earth becomes criminal and is likely to incur a prison sentence, then companies and large organizations are going to be very wary of allowing projects to carry on if there's going to be prosecution at the end of it. And if a company can't get insured to do something, it's not going to do it.
These companies have been making massive profits for 50 years. That's probably why they're not keen to switch over to renewable energy, which is cheaper and less profitable.
We need to seriously start doing something about this now, because these companies have known the damage that they are causing and have sat on their hands for decades. They are the people making the money out of this. They are the ones who are profiting. And yet these are the people that we most need to go after with a law of ecocide, and rightly so.
Now, mostly it's carried out by corporations in pursuit of profit. It's very often carried out in developing countries where perhaps the rule of law isn't so strong.
They can buy political support, and crucially, they also have the power to make exorbitant compensation claims against any government which tries to phase out coal, oil, or gas.
In those countries, if companies do fall foul of the law, they can usually monetize any penalty. So that might mean paying a fine, it might mean paying some civil damages, or it might even mean paying the odd bribe. But because the penalty is financial, they can just put it on the balance sheet and it becomes a cost of doing business or an overhead.
Especially as a young person, it's frustrating to see people only think of the present. There's people alive even now who are going to be suffering those consequences, and then there's just however many generations in the future, and not only humans but plant life and animals that'll end up, suffering as a result.
The fact that everything is connected to everything else means that if you damage one thing, you may not see the knock-on effect, but it will happen. And it is there, and nature is connected in every way possible.
And this is about the relationship between humans and the living world. And we have to change that. And since the relationship between humans and the natural world for centuries have been that nature has been only a resource for us to dominate and to own.
I want Quakers to step up and be radical, as John Woolman was. Quakers spent decades debating the merits and otherwise of enslavement. Decades. We haven't got decades. Climate scientists are saying that we've got very little time to the tipping point.
As a Quaker community, we need to bring these issues forwards and do whatever we can to try and make this part of the law, both nationally and internationally.
This is a very deep change. It's an existential change. And that's why I think faith communities have a lot to say about the ecocide and about the respect for the living world.
There's stuff happening, but it doesn't feel like there's as much emphasis as like there should be. It's really easy to just try and be like the nice group of people.
I would love it if Quakers could look back and think we did everything we could. And this is the most effective way that we could step up and be radical and lead other faith groups in pushing for an ecocide law.
Personally, I think that making ecocide a crime is probably the only way that we can stop these huge corporations from destroying our planet.
As Quakers, and as all people of the earth, we need to reach a point where we regard nature as valuable in its own right and not just as a resource. And those people who go against that and just pillage it for financial gain, for them, we have to have it that they actually think twice before doing that.
We want to raise the awareness that this is actually something that we could do and that we must do and that it's urgent.
Sometimes we just kind of have to make a stand, just be like, this is definitely wrong.